Today, my preceptor talked to us a lot about patient autonomy and, in particular, patient involvement with decision making. He said the nice thing about psych is that these medicines that we give them, none of them are really a matter of life or death. Like, if a patient is acutely agitated and you want to give them an antipsychotic, okay, that'll calm them down. But if the family doesn't want you to give it to them, okay, well, you don't have to give the antipsychotic. You can put them in wrist restraints. The choices have the pros and cons, and one may be more or less favorable than the other, but he's like, it's nice because if you decide not to give a patient their blood pressure medication, well, they could die in their sleep, and psychiatry doesn't necessarily have that same concern. And he talked about how recent studies have been revealing the fact that a lot of the antidepressants have a pretty similar level of efficacy. So really it's not so much a concern of which SSRI should I give them that'll work best for them. There are some cases where very specific individuals may have genetic predispositions to work better with some, but for the most part, as long as they don't have any other medical conditions, having the patient involved in looking up their own medication and deciding which ones they're going to take has actually really improved patient compliance and patient commitment to the treatment. He explains, and this can also apply outside of medicine, because when a patient decides, okay, I've decided on this, that gets them involved in it, and that investment, that personal investment, gets it so that they're going to give it more of a shot. So then when they experience the side effects, they're like, okay, well, I can weather through this because one, they looked it up and they're expecting it, and then two, they're like, I chose this, and so I'm going to see it through. Give an analogy, and I'm literally just saying exactly what he said. He gave an analogy of when people try to sell stuff as you walk out of convenience stores. There are people that try to sell stuff and they're like, hey, would you like to donate to this charitable cause? Originally, the study found that about 50% of people would donate to the charitable cause and 50% wouldn't. Well, in the cases where they ran it and people would come out and they'd start with, instead, do you think that you are a good person? And a lot of people, everybody would say, yes, of course. And then after that, they would say, will you donate to this charitable cause? That number went from 50% of people donating to 80% of people donating. That was the example that I used to say that, likewise, if you get a patient, it doesn't matter what they pick. If you tell a patient, is there a medicine that you like or that you've heard of, or look up a few that you want, and then they say, oh, I want duloxetine. Well, great, I'll give you duloxetine, and then most of the time, as per the new studies, it's going to work just the same as everything else. There were caveats to that he said, like some patients, as I mentioned before, have some genetic predispositions to work better with some meds, or in the case of duloxetine, for example, it can cause organ failure. So as the psychiatrist, that's his job to step in and be like, okay, well, that won't work if you have that organ failure, and therefore I'll suggest a different one. Because his job is, of course, ultimately to make sure that patients don't harm themselves by picking the wrong drug. But that's kind of nuanced, and ultimately that's getting into the nitty-gritty of what we talked about today. But it was nice. Short day again. But starting next week, he said it's going to be a little bit busier for us because we'll have residents to work with, and then hopefully get a little bit more involved as well.